love the most about this next lesson is it's not only our next installment in the feminine journey, but it is also an age-old femme beef. In our previous lesson, we talked about being introduced to the emotional loss of the human experience and having to deal with the power and passion dynamic. We also briefly went over that our initial stages in the feminine journey also include our relationship to the masculine. But before we get into that, I would like for us to first look at what it's like as a feminine once we start delving into the depths and the shadow of our emotional world. This process can look very different from a feminine dominant perspective or a masculine dominant perspective for feminines. And so we are going to look at the beef between Pink and Xtina Aguilera and their discography to break that experience down. Every human has early emotional wounding to address, but going through life as feminine dominant versus going through life as masculine dominant is going to dictate how you go through that emotional experience. Most feminine dominants, who will be Xtina Aguilera in this video, go through life very passion forward, very heart open, very imaginative and relationship based. Whereas masculine dominants, who is Pink in this video, usually go through life very literally based, self-image based, can be very self-assured, and primarily focus on things that seem real and tangible. So one of the first things that happens in the process is being confronted and challenged with the core way that you go about life, wherein Pink being challenged in her first project within her self-image and how she was being portrayed, and Xtina Aguilera being challenged when it comes to her level of passion and how much she wanted to put into her projects in an industry that was looking for something softer, more pop sounding, and more palatable and less powerful. The beef, however, for these two began during Lady Marmalade, but hold that thought. Once we as human beings come to the realization that the inner world that we have cultivated for ourselves emotionally looks nothing like the outer world and may even be nothing like the family we were born into, and actually sharing and being a part of the world is much more challenging than we initially thought it would be, we start to develop our attachment style to the world and our experiences in it. I'm sure you've heard of anxious and avoidant attachment styles. However, I find that in the feminine experience, the anxious or highly feminine wounded attachment style has a lot to do with enduring your experience, whereas the wounded masculine dominant attachment style for a lot of feminines has to do with controlling one's experience. This is particularly where these two artists will first bump heads during Lady Marmalade, when Xtina Aguilera's team allegedly came in talking about how she was going to get this part and that part to sing, and Pink was trying to control the situation because she wasn't trying not to be recognized for the fact that she can also sing and she also has pipes, and there was automatic beef between the two, whereas Pink came across more of a competitive end of things and Xtina came across more of a self-conscious way of going about things, and her wounding sort of showed with her trying to come in and sort of stake this claim from a place of insecurity about not having it her way, and Pink being frustrated with her lack of control of that experience. However, when you look at the discography of both artists, you will notice that both feminines were going through a period of emotional void where they were trying to unpack their attachments to their relationships by looking at their family upbringing, where they came from, and why they were the way that they were. They were actually mirroring each other and very similar, but going about it in two completely different ways. as we look at some of their most emotional songs about their upbringing, you can even see in Pink's lyrics that she was trying to control her experience as a child, while Xtina was just enduring her experience as a child, both growing up in households where they saw either a lack of love, toxic love, or wounded love. Then the beef was further exasperated once they both started working with the same feminine mother archetype. Each individual had a relationship with Linda Perry and used that relationship to birth these projects. However, Pink was historically very unhappy with Christina Aguilera's relationship with Linda Perry. It became competitive again. She felt like Christina was trying to copy her, very masculine dominant, but at the end of the day, she was just hurt. Both individuals were hurting, and they were able to connect with Linda Perry as a feminine matriarch that helped them navigate that pain. However, the masculine was protective and fighting over that, while the feminine just felt like they were living the experience and enjoying it and taking it for what it was. Neither side was necessarily wrong, and that's not to say that Christina Aguilera's insecurity wasn't playing a role in their negative relationship, but it was the same experience, just mirrored in different ways. The songs that they created with Linda Perry, some of their most iconic music with Just Like a Pill or Beautiful, even further highlight the way that Pink would sort of dip into disassociation to disconnect from her attachments and her frustration with that, and Christina Aguilera would go into self-loathing and being self-critical and needing to learn to self-love. What's beautiful about looking at their work and the way that they have unpacked their emotional worlds and their romantic relationships, and the way that Pink has come into a deep realization of the ways that she has controlled, how she had to work on her ego in her relationship, and Christina Aguilera had to remove masculines from their pedestal. It's just very beautiful to see the ways in which both of these artists did that deep emotional work, but from two different polarities. Dethroning masculine energy is a critical step in balancing your inner chakra centers with your feminine and your masculine energy working as supportive elements of each other. In previous lessons, lesson 1, we talked about our interpersonal crisis with the universe. In lesson 2, we talked about our childhood trauma and how that develops in our feminine journey. So if you haven't seen those, check out the last 2 videos. But in this lesson, lesson 3, we are going to be talking about the practical elements of moving through life while also doing that work. You can't always be sitting in an existential crisis. You can't always be unpacking generational trauma. Unfortunately, you have to go to work. Nicki Minaj's Queen era actually embodies the inner balance many feminines go through when trying to demand your worth in the world while also maintaining intimate relationships. So in this video, we are going to be revisiting the Queen era and also taking a look at why this didn't catch on or resonate with many people during its original release. Subconsciously, many feminines second-guess their ability to secure and sustain their physical life without some intervention or some relationship to a physical masculine. Sometimes it's just a deep place of insecurity that feminines need to work on. For other feminines, it's not a matter of a lack of self-confidence as much as it is a deep fear of prolonged loneliness and the inability to nurture others and continuously having to stay in your masculine energy. So addressing your inner masculine energy requires you to test your resolve in grounding yourself and supporting yourself through securing your own survival, i.e., creating your own form of income and sustaining your own life. So in the same way that physical masculines have ignored their inner feminine, physical feminines have also undervalued their inner masculine and their ability to not only secure their life, but to thrive. And this is a lot of the energy behind many of the tracks on the Queen Era project, while at the same time remaining emotionally vulnerable, taking a critical look back at poor issues and treatment in relationships, and learning how to call back and call in your power from those who drained you previously. All of this energy is what you will use as your life force energy to support your masculine in actually claiming and receiving and building the life that you want. So the question becomes, why did this not catch like wildfire at the time of its release? This brings us back to our introduction to this series, the difference between baddie culture and queen culture. Baddie culture is a lot more easily and more quickly accessible. And in 2017, there was an undeniable force behind who would become a main figure of baddie culture, the ability to acquire, to get the deals, to get the accolades, for everything to look exactly the way that it is supposed to look on the outside. At that time, the collective consciousness was not at a place to embrace the integration that you kind of see on the Queen album. Not to say that these other elements weren't fun, enjoyable, a critical part of pop culture and our development, but in other words, it was a manifestation of the dichotomy of baddie culture versus queen culture. The reason why this represents so much integration is because feminines are supported by their inner knowing or their intuition, and that also is included in work and business and other areas that are inherently derived from our masculine chakras. So that means your inner knowing is going to play just as much of a role as your logical mind when it comes to building or sustaining your life. And that's knowing when to step back, when to wait, and when to allow. This is also about being more forthcoming in your throat chakra, saying exactly what you're looking for, what you need, expressing your needs clearly. Cultivating an image of self that also resonates with your inner world and then bleeds into your relationship with others and the boundaries that you set in your interactions with them. So much of the Queen album is about instinct, and it is about mastering of a craft, which is highly feminine, but at the same time doing so while navigating a masculine landscape. In the last lesson, we spoke about how important it is to decenter or de-externalize masculine energy as an adult woman or an adult feminine. However, in this next episode, we are going to be talking about how that process is always going to come up against the inner little girl or the inner little feminine in everyone. And nobody embodies this process more vividly than Amy Winehouse. The way a feminine is indoctrinated around masculine energy and trained to view masculine energy is usually stark different from how a feminine experiences masculine energy. And then you couple this experience with your perception of your first external masculine example, which for many feminines is their father, and you create a conundrum of emotionally imbalanced experiences. Even your deep sense of love or admiration that you may have for your external father figure has an impact on how you receive masculine treatment or what you think healthy examples of masculine energy is. And this is important because a lot of times we confuse the fact that our external masculines view us as an extension of them and not as an individual person. This is important because in order for us to have and understand our own autonomy as well as take responsibility for our lives, we need to see ourselves as the controller or the narrator or the order of our lives. And for many feminines, we see it as our first masculine figure, or the fact that there isn't one there. You start to view masculine energy with a warped God complex because you view external masculine energy as the governor of your life. And this can seep into the relationships you have and the men that you're attracted to. No, these two did not date. However, one time for the fact that she wrote this for him. What is with all these women writing songs for this man? But inevitably, you are disappointed because the way that you were trained to view masculine energy, and even the identity that perhaps your masculine figure or father projected to you, isn't actually how masculinity has been showing up in the world. You're a whole lot more emotionally stronger than masculine energy. You learn very quickly that it isn't a safe place for you to go and be, and a lot of feminines struggle to cope with that. You then try to prove yourself to masculine energy by showing them that you can do all of the things that you're expecting them to do, almost like you would do to your father when you try to prove to him that you can do things and you're able to do things because he's the governor of your life, which can lead to an anxiety attachment style where you are constantly worried because you just want to know, are you going to be safe in this connection with this masculine? Are they capable of keeping you safe? Are they capable of providing anything for you that gives you emotional and literal stability? And oftentimes, many feminines, night after night, wake up alone. This is why I say it's really not anyone's job to protect, per se, people from going through certain relationship experiences, because what is going to happen for you karmically is always what's going to happen to you. However, it's these videos and my hope that this will help you see where you are and be able to learn more effectively so that you don't allow the darkness to swallow you up, like unfortunately our beloved Amy went through herself. There is a saying that says something to the effect of, what you dislike about a person is what you wish you had within yourself, or what you dislike within a person is mirroring what you dislike about yourself. It is something like that, but it's this relationship that is what we are witnessing between Tamar and Tawanda, what we have witnessed over the years, and is a common frustrating relationship amongst feminines. This is the push and pull relationship between a masculine dominant woman and a wounded feminine woman, because they are actually the exact same person. The majority of people who are walking around resonating as masculine dominant have wounded or blocked feminine energy. And that is just a byproduct of the society that we've been living in that has been suppressing the feminine. And many wounded feminines have difficulty honing their masculine skills or have difficulty with their masculine chakras. So in this video, we are going to break down the fundamental misalignment between these two sisters. Any footage that I've watched where I've observed these two, I notice that Tawanda is internally bothered by the softness that comes innate to Tamar. And it's something that a lot of masculine dominant women struggle with because they have an internal disconnect to their feminine energy, and the current masculine dominant energy that they've marinated in is inherently competitive. There is a frustration with why they can't seem to access a natural level of softness or just a natural radiant delivery. There is a hesitancy that I sense in Tawanda that you can see a lot in some masculine dominant women when it comes to those feminine cues. And instead of
reaching within oneself and trying to understand why there's a disconnect, it's usually projected outward toward a feminine who it does come naturally to, and that's where the confrontation usually originates. On the flip side, a part of struggling with your masculine energy is oftentimes having low self-esteem and low self-confidence as well. So you can see how the experience is mirrored. They both are struggling with a level of confidence, but one is an inward softness that projects outward, and the other one is this sort of natural authority and command without asking for permission, that most wounded feminines struggle with initially. So when the confrontation strikes, the wounded feminine's reaction is typically to be defensive, to go into victim mode, because you take it as, or they take it as, being attacked, right? And being attacked for how they naturally show up. They don't feel like they're doing anything intentionally to try and harm others by being themselves, but it's triggering the masculine dominant woman in the room. And so this is why falling into that victim placement feels natural, but is ultimately unproductive. So this is when the component of jealousy really starts to come in, because each individual is jealous of something that the other one can attain naturally. Tawanda comes off as being jealous of Tamar's ability to be the baby, in the sense that she will receive help. She expects men to help her. She expects masculines to help her. She's not, she sort of wears her heart on her sleeve, kind of feminine, whereas Tawanda doesn't feel like she has the ability or the agency to do that. And Tamar seems to be jealous of the fact that Tawanda earns and gets respect off rip, like a lot of masculine dominant energy does, just for being masculine, and has a frustration or struggles to understand why she can't command that on her own without having to prove it through different means or merits. This also speaks to why the family pecking order is what ultimately drives a lot of the tension, because as a masculine dominant woman, Tawanda has no issue yielding to the other perceived masculine energy that has accomplished more and that actually, has the tangible things, the money, like Tony. There's no issue. There is an age difference. It makes sense in the masculine's mind that the older sibling should succeed more or have more. What doesn't make sense in the masculine's mind is that the younger sibling should receive more or have more. Even if it seems really shallow or it seems baseless, like it's really just ego based. That's what it is, and that's where the frustration and the challenge comes in, because then for the wounded feminine, to everyone else, it's just about receiving respect for existing, for being as they are, for having an open heart, for being giving, for showing up, and wondering why that's never enough, when really not understanding that it doesn't have anything to do with them. It has to do with the way that others are triggered by their ability to be that way. That's not to say that Tamar doesn't have her own things that she needs to work on with respect to her masculine energy, learning how to communicate more effectively, learning how to command more respect, particularly in romantic relationships, because there's still that wounded feminine choose me energy that's there. So this is just my take on how I think some masculine dominant women and some wounded feminines are actually the same person. They are just mirroring each other's wounds and ping pong triggering each other back and forth.
If you've made it to this point in the video, then my hope is that you enjoyed it. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments. Consider subscribing to this channel or give this video a like, as it will help me greatly in the algorithm. My name is Chinez, and welcome to my channel. At the time of this recording, you can still connect with me on TikTok at Chinez, Chinez. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Official Chinez. Check out my website. I offer personal tarot spiritual readings, and you can find information on that in the pinned comment and in the description box. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next episode.